In the heart of Lagos, where glass towers pierced the sky and ambition moved faster than traffic on Third Mainland Bridge, lived Obinna Okafor, a proud Igbo man from Anambra who had built a name for himself in the city's competitive real estate and agro-processing industry. Obinna was the kind of man Lagos admired. He drove a black Range Rover, wore tailored suits from designers in Victoria Island, and spoke at business conferences about legacy and generational wealth. But long before the interviews and magazine features, there was Adaze. Adaze Okafor was not just his wife, she was his foundation. They met during their NYSC year in Abuja. She had studied business administration. He studied economics. While Obinna had bold ideas, it was Adaez who understood structure, documentation, and risk. When they married and moved to Lagos, they started small, buying and reselling agricultural produce from the East. From those humble beginnings, they built Golden Crest Holdings, a diversified company involved in palm oil processing, logistics, and later, property development. The company headquarters stood proudly in Lekki Phase One. On paper, both were co-founders and equal shareholders, but success changes some people. As Golden Crest began signing multi-million-naira contracts and acquiring properties in Ikoyi, Lekki, and even Abuja, Obinna started changing. The humble man who once wrote verses became intoxicated with influence. He began attending exclusive parties, private yacht gatherings, and closed-door meetings where ego flowed more freely than champagne. Then came Amara. Amara was younger, flashy, and impressed by Obinna's money. She lived in a luxury apartment in Victoria Island, paid for quietly by him. At first it was discreet. Late meetings, business trips, weekend conferences that lasted too long. Adaisi noticed the distance before she confirmed the betrayal. Obinna stopped discussing company decisions with her. He began overriding her authority in meetings. Staff who once reported to her were instructed to clear everything through Oga. Then one evening, he came home unusually calm. Adaze, he began, loosening his tie. Our lawyers advise that for expansion purposes, investors are more comfortable when ownership is streamlined. We need to transfer all properties and the company fully into my name. Adace didn't react immediately. All the properties? She asked quietly. Yes, it's just strategy. You are my wife. What's mine is yours. The next day, official-looking documents were brought home. Property deeds, share transfer forms, directorship restructuring papers, everything positioned to remove her completely. Obinna had underestimated the woman he married. Adaze read every line carefully. She noticed subtle aggressiveness in the clauses. No protection for her. No fallback rights. Instead of arguing, she smiled. If this strengthens the company, I will sign, she said softly. Obinna mistook her calm for submission. What he didn't know was that Adaze had long sensed his plans. Weeks earlier, after discovering bank transfers to Amara, she quietly consulted a top corporate attorney in Ikoyi, one who specialized in asset protection and marital corporate disputes. Together, they prepared something brilliant, a mirror set of documents, visually identical, properly stamped, professionally bound, but legally structured as conditional transfers, transfers that required board ratification and regulatory confirmation that would never be granted without her authorization. Hidden within were protective clauses locking majority control in a holding trust she solely controlled. When Obena returned from a trip to Abuja, Ade signed the substitute document. He never noticed the swap. From that moment, Obinna transformed completely. Believing he now owned everything, he stopped pretending. He moved into the guest room permanently. He insulted Adaise openly. "You're living here because of my generosity," he would say. He reduced her access to company accounts. Also, he thought. He began moving funds, preparing to liquidate assets. He confided in Amara about his master plan: sell off major properties, dissolve the company, transfer proceeds to an offshore account, and relocate to Dubai. Amara believed she had won. Months passed. Obinna initiated property sales in Ikoyi and Lekki worth billions of naira. He negotiated a near-final acquisition deal for Golden Crest Holdings with a foreign investor. Due diligence began. Then everything collapsed. The investor's legal team flagged inconsistencies. The share transfer documents did not grant Obinna unilateral authority. Board resolutions were invalid. Corporate Affairs Commission records still reflected Adaeze as majority shareholder and controlling director. Worse still, Adaeze had anticipated asset stripping. Quietly, through her lawyer, she had filed protective caveats on all major properties and corporate restrictions on share disposal months earlier. When Obinna attempted to force sign digital approvals using forged internal authorization codes, the transaction triggered a financial compliance alert. Within days, he was formally accused of attempted corporate fraud, falsification of authority, and financial misrepresentation. But Obinna didn't know yet. He had already booked one-way tickets. On a humid Friday night, he arrived at Murtala Mohammed International Airport with Amara beside him, both carrying designer luggage and dreams of escape. At the departure terminal, just after passport control, security officers approached. "Mr. Obinna Okafor." He smiled confidently. "Yes, you need to come with us." Amara stepped back slowly. Within minutes, Obinna learned the truth. He did not legally own what he was trying to sell. His attempted transactions constituted fraud. A court order had already been issued restricting his movement pending investigation. Amara's phone was switched off before sunrise. News spread quickly across Lagos business circles. Blogs carried headlines: "Real estate mogul arrested in asset fraud scandal." Investors panicked. Associates distanced themselves overnight. Meanwhile, Adazi remained in the company headquarters. Composed, she immediately called an emergency board meeting. Evidence was presented. She assumed full executive authority legally, not emotionally, but strategically. Within weeks, she removed Obinna as signatory. She restructured the executive team. She stabilized investor confidence. She filed for divorce on grounds of infidelity and economic abuse. When journalists tried to provoke her, she gave only one statement: "Partnership requires integrity. Where integrity dies, structure must prevail." Obinna, once celebrated in Lagos high society, now sat in a quiet detention office awaiting trial. His assets were frozen. His so-called friends stopped answering calls. And Adaise. She expanded Golden Crest Holdings beyond Nigeria. She launched a Women in Business Mentorship Foundation in Lagos, teaching female entrepreneurs about ownership rights, documentation, and financial literacy. At conferences, she would say, "Never be what you cannot legally defend." In a city obsessed with power, Adaeze proved something greater: